And we talk often, too, about that crisis afflicting Black boys, Black men. So talk about that need, that imperative to focus exclusively on Black boys, on Black men for this particular project.
Well, as you know, I've gotten my start here in the city of Philadelphia as a certified school psychologist with the School District of Philadelphia, which I was for 5 years before I resigned. And the primary reason that I resigned is, as the youngest at that time, I was the youngest Black school psychologist for the School District of Philadelphia. My job often became being an advocate for Black boys, both of whose teachers and parents believed that they had problems that could not be corrected without medication or special education. And I quickly saw how both special education and ADHD and the medication that comes along with it were being used as weapons of mass destruction, not just in Philadelphia, but across America's public and charter school system. And so I saw how special ed became the catch-all. It became the scapegoat for family problems. It became the scapegoat for poor instruction. It became the scapegoat for underfunded schools. It became the scapegoat for poor and ill-prepared teachers. And so Black boys have often been blamed for things that have been done to them, as opposed to problems that they bring with them into the classroom. And so what I have learned is that America has a system for destroying Black males on purpose. It is not an accident, nor is it a byproduct of poverty. It's not a byproduct of single motherhood. It's not a byproduct of mass incarceration of Black fathers, nor is it a byproduct of athletic culture or hip-hop music. It is deliberate. And those steps are miseducation, special education, medical medication, juvenile incarceration, psychological alienation, and number 6, premature extermination. Almost every boy that I know who is at odds with the school system or at odds with the criminal justice system, he's at one of those 6 stages of the psychoacademic holocaust.
And that destruction of Black boys, of Black men, is just as deliberate, it's just as well designed as, as Chancellor Williams titled it, that destruction of Black civilization overall. It starts with the destruction of Black men. And, I'm real curious, like, we talk a lot about what the state of Black boys is right now. I don't think we get deeper into that discussion. So we talked about, like, how the climate, how the environment is designed against Black male success or Black male progress. What's the state of that in your mind when you look at the current condition of Black boys? How bad is it, especially in the sense that this is why we need something like this school?
We are in, Black men in general and Black boys in particular are probably in the worst shape and the worst state we've been in since the Jim Crow era. And Black boys, as public and charter school children, are in the worst state and in the worst shape they've been in since school desegregation in 1954. And let us be clear, most of the ills that impact Black boys would not exist had we never forced the schools to desegregate. Special ed may have never been created had the schools not desegregated. ADHD, conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, the mass drugging of Black boys in public school with the Ritalin, the Adderall, the Concerta, the Metadate, the Cyclert. Many of these things would not even be happening if we didn't force white teachers to teach Black children or force white children to sit next to Black children. A lot of this is the outgrowth and the side effect of the invasion of white public and charter school systems by Black children. With that being said, though, we also have to point 4 fingers at ourselves as a community, because we are a $2 trillion economy, Black America, but yet you have no more than maybe 3 dozen independent schools. How do you explain the fact that only 1 out of every 4 Black boys graduates from high school on time? 1 out of 3 will end up in juvenile incarceration, referred by his public or charter school. 1 out of 4 will end up on medication. How do you explain these types of dismal outcomes for a community that spends $2 billion a year on Air Jordan, $4 billion a year on liquor. We spend $3 billion a year on video games, $800 million a year on chicken, turkey, beef, and pork. So although racism is clearly at the foundation, we have to also look at Black apathy as playing a critical role in the crisis of Black boys also.
And then enters the solution, you know, with your initiative, the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RBG International Leadership Academy for Boys. So what's different in that approach? What's different in your approach to education with this new school? There's you know, I do see a new opportunity, particularly in this pandemic, to overhaul education models, like as we know it, completely upend and overhaul K through 12 education models. I've been talking about that quite a bit, you know, through pandemic in this very uncertain environment. We can do things differently. So how does this do it differently?
The purpose of FDMG, the central focus, is teaching our young men how to be nation builders, organizers, and leaders. How do I go back to North Philadelphia and build an independent Black community? That means the bank, the hospital, the supermarket, the school, the manufacturing sector, the distribution network, the import and export process. We need nation builders. Dr. Carter G. Woodson in Miseducation of the Negro summed it up best when he said, Black people need organizers and servicemen more than leaders. We often talk about leadership, but too often in the Black community, that ends up being nothing more than egoship without any true purpose and without any true service being given to the people. So we want to teach our young men to be servants of the community, to be statesmen for African people. We want them to be able to create their own entrepreneurial opportunity. Simply sending our children to college is not a victory. Every charter school in Philadelphia, every public school in Philadelphia prides themselves on their college acceptance rate. I have no problem with that, because we do need doctors, attorneys, engineers, psychologists, educators. But does everybody want to be a doctor? Does everybody want to be an engineer? Does everybody want to be a dentist? No, they don't. So why are we sending every single Black child in Philadelphia, in New Jersey, in Delaware, in Maryland, and across Black America automatically to college as if it's required by God? They should be going into trade school. They should be going into entrepreneurship. But we don't give them those opportunities because we made trade school a thing of the past, which has been the most significant contributor to the mass incarceration of Black men. So we want to bring back the trade programs in FDMG, and we also want to bring back entrepreneurship as a significant curriculum that our young men must study. They will learn the laws of money, because Black people have wasted too much money because we don't understand the laws that operate money.
Yeah, we need that. You incorporate this African-centered, Afrocentric-centered approach to this curriculum, and so how are you doing that, and how does that help Black boys navigate, I mean, this world, this uncertain world that's generally hostile to them?
The great psychologist Dr. Amos Wilson, who was also a Garveyite like myself, he said that the self-esteem of a child, any child, plays a significant role in what they believe they are capable of doing. So there is no such thing as educating Black children and not teaching them who they are. We have a lot of schools who believe you can educate a Black child and not teach them who they are. And I would argue to educate a Black child and to not teach them who they are is to set them up to be an intellectual slave to white civilization and culture. Any Black person who is well educated with a tremendous skill set, who has not been taught who they are, which includes loyalty to the community, is a traitor waiting to happen. The great Pan-Africanist Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso said, a soldier without a political education is a traitor waiting to happen. We got to make sure they have knowledge of self, because if they don't have knowledge of self, anything else you teach them will be used against the community. You mentioned the girls earlier, and we will be adding the girls' school, hopefully, within the next 3 to 5 years after we open up the boys' school, which we're looking at having fully opened next August of 2022. But when the Girl Academy opens, I have already informed the Black community that all of the girls must report 100% nappy by nature. There can be no weave, no perm, no European hair color. Some have questioned that. The feminists have questioned, how can you tell Black girls how to wear their hair? It's because Black women have been victimized more by European standards of beauty than anything else. Just like Black men have been crippled by a lack of economic opportunity more than anything else. So before I can teach the Black female child anything, I have to teach her how to love herself. If she can't look in that mirror and love that nappy hair, love that chocolate skin, love that broad nose, love her hips, if she don't love who God made her to be, anything else I teach her is useless. Love of self is the foundation of true African-centered education.